A starving polar bear collapses outside a remote village, too weak to move. What one man does next stuns the entire world and changes the bear's fate forever. One afternoon in April, a quiet village in the Kamchatka region buzzed with excitement as word spread about something strange along the coast. The villagers rushed to see for themselves and were left speechless. There, wandering along the shoreline, was a wild polar bear. None of them had ever seen one in real life, let alone in their region. It was an incredible and baffling sight. How could such a creature, native to the faraway Arctic, have ended up here? As speculation grew, a possible explanation began to form. Perhaps while foraging for food, the bear had been on a sheet of ice that unexpectedly broke away from the mainland. Trapped and adrift, he likely tried to return to solid ground, but found himself surrounded by a treacherous mix of open water and floating ice. With no safe path back, the young predator was carried away by the currents, forced into a journey he never intended to take. Days, maybe even weeks, passed as the bear drifted across the sea. When he finally stumbled onto the unfamiliar shores of Kamchatka, he was exhausted, disoriented, and starving. The landscape around him was a far cry from his icy Arctic home. Everything, from the temperature to the terrain, felt alien. Yet, his instincts pushed him forward, unaware that his incredible survival story was just beginning. The animal was 700 kilometers from home, so when he arrived in the village and stood on the shore, all he could think about was food. The polar bear tried to dig for food, but every attempt ended in failure. Not only was the land unfamiliar, but it was also unusually hot, and suitable food was scarce. The polar bear wandered around, but initially avoided approaching the village. His sharp ears picked up the distant sounds of people going about their daily business. Normally, other bears stay away from human settlements, but this bear was hungry and tired. It might not have been wise to approach the village, but hunger spurred him on. A nearby building caught his attention, and he walked towards it. The predator, of course, did not know that this was the village police station. He was lying there, weak and tired from his long journey, with a sad and desperate expression on his face, as if asking for help. It didn't take long for the local police to notice their unusual visitor. One of the officers raised the alarm, and 2 officers were dispatched to take a closer look at the animal. The polar bear was gigantic in size. It had white fur and clearly visible sharp claws. Naturally, they were afraid to get any closer. The policemen approached cautiously to get a better view of the animal, but kept their distance so as not to frighten it. When the anxious officers finally realized what the animal was, they were shocked. There in the snow was a large and intimidating young male polar bear that had mysteriously landed in their small village. They couldn't believe their eyes, but they also realized that something was wrong with their unexpected visitor. The animal appeared to have a serious injury to its front paw. The polar bear was lying there with its injured paw pressed against its body. The police officers felt sorry for the animal and decided to help it. They contacted the local wildlife protection authorities. The officers were shocked to hear about this unusual case and set off as quickly as possible. They took care of the polar bear's paw and gave it rest. The bear, called Kara by the locals, became a celebrity in the village. Although the bear ate very little, the villagers brought him plenty of fish and food every day. Although happy for the people's help, it was clear that the bear wanted to return home. His return became a sensation, even attracting visitors from neighboring villages. The police kept a close eye on the bear and were careful not to let anyone get too close while they considered a solution. Experts were consulted and came to the conclusion that Kara had no chance of survival in Kamchatka and needed to return home urgently. But how was this to be done? The animal was so disoriented that it could never find its way back on its own. Even if the polar bear knew the way, the journey would be illogical for the animal, and it would not make it. The situation looked hopeless. Dmitry Voronin, co-head of the State Hunting Supervision Department and the Regional Forestry and Wildlife Protection Agency, explained that the return was not an isolated case. Polar bears sometimes wander away from their homes on ice floes when the ice sheets unexpectedly break away from the mainland. Unfortunately, they are often unable to return home or find food in their new environment. Therefore, for guests like Kara, it is very likely that they will die after this involuntary relocation. But humans were not going to let this happen. They had to find a way to help the polar bear. News of the unusual visitor spread quickly, and many people followed with interest how his condition developed. Within a few days, measures were taken to return the predator to its true home in the Arctic. The regional governor, Andrei Morozov, asked Emergency Minister Alexei Petrov to provide a helicopter to take Kara back to his Arctic habitat. Also, as the official Boris noted, a special transport cage was built for the animal. 8 days after Kara's arrival, the Russian Emergencies Ministry organized air rescue operations to take Kara back to the Arctic. Never before had a creature of such gigantic proportions been transported by helicopter in such a way. Everyone involved was therefore in great difficulty. Still, people were determined to carry out this rescue operation. When they arrived in Kamchatka, experts temporarily put the bear to sleep so that it could survive the flight. Viktor Medin, a wildlife advisor in Kamchatka, reported that the bear was healthy and well-fed. The anesthetized animal was then placed in a specially made cage and loaded into the helicopter. Villagers cheered as the authorities took off with Kara, but no one could have predicted what would happen during the flight. The journey was long, and tension filled the air inside the helicopter. Suddenly, an unexpected sound broke the silence. The polar bear had woken up. The crew froze, instantly alert. No one dared to make any sudden movements, fearing it might startle the massive animal. Anxiety gripped them as they imagined what could go wrong. If the bear panicked, he might attempt to break free or shake the helicopter mid-flight, a risk that could endanger everyone on board during the 700-kilometer journey. But against all odds, the bear remained calm. It was as if he sensed the humans meant no harm. He lay quietly in his cage, eyes watching the crew with curiosity rather than fear. Though conscious for the remainder of the flight, he made no attempt to escape or lash out. A spokesperson from the Kamchatka regional government later shared that Kara had been scared by the noise and movement, yet he stayed remarkably composed. He was, in their words, a very brave bear. The helicopter eventually reached the designated release site, and hope hung heavy in the air. Once they landed, the team carefully opened the cage and gently urged Kara to step out. The bear paused for a moment, taking in his surroundings. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, he bounded into the wilderness. Free at last. The rescue mission had worked. Kara was finally home. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. I hope you like this story. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Also, press the bell icon to never miss the updates from our channel. Thank you.